Voting isn't just going to the polls on election day anymore. Options like early voting, mail-in voting, and ballot drop boxes are available to more voters and are growing in popularity.
How to Vote, a tool created by Democracy Works, breaks down the options your state offers for casting a ballot, empowering you to decide when and where to vote. Democracy works best when we all vote. But misinformation and confusion about election procedures have resulted in low voter turnout.
How to Vote, a tool created by Democracy Works, takes the guesswork out of voting. Things like signing up for election reminders, seeing what's on your ballot, step-by-step assistance requesting your mail-in ballot, exploring options for returning your mail-in ballot, checking your voter registration status, finding your nearest polling site, and making sure you have the appropriate ID.
Decide when and where you'll vote this year at howto.vote.
Welcome to Millennials with Mics, discussions about movies, politics, religion, and more. I'm Aaron Mason.
And I'm Christian Stevens.
Welcome to our podcast!
We will be discussing a great many things on our podcast. Movies will probably be most frequent, wouldn't you think?
I would definitely say so. We are big connoisseurs of the films and huge cinephiles, so yeah.
But, there'll be many, many other things. We're very passionate about a lot of things. Politics, philosophy, religion,
books.
Music. We wanted to start off talking about the upcoming... Well, we wanted to talk about James Bond. No Time to Die is coming out here in a few months, God willing.
The fifth of the Daniel Craig Bond series.
The last of his Bond series.
The fifth and the last, yeah.
So, what are your thoughts on the new movie? I mean, we've had... How many trailers have there even been for that? One, maybe two? Like, it was supposed to come out, like, in a couple weeks. But, like, I only ever remember seeing one trailer.
I think, been, like, one trailer plus maybe one or two teasers.
Jeez, that's ridiculous.
But, like, these Bond movies don't really care much about having multiple trailers.
Yeah, they don't want to give away too much.
Yeah.
But, like, so what, based off of the one trailer that you can really see, what are your thoughts on it?
Well, comparing this one by the trailer to, I would at least say, the last two that Daniel Craig has done, it looks as though Daniel Craig is still very energetic and still kicking ass, and he's ready to take on for a fifth and final time. And it doesn't look like he's slowing down or tired of his performance as James Bond. So it gives me promise that he's going to end his series as James Bond with a big bang.
On a high note.
On a high note, yeah. And that, it's got a great cast. It's got great promise. I mean, it's a typical James Bond caper. Yeah. So as far as like, ooh, this and that goes, I mean, it's, it's the same thing. But, performance-wise, I'm sure Daniel Craig's going to really up the ante on this one.
And there's several things to talk about with that. I mean, that's Rami Malek is...
The Bond villain.
The new villain in this. We know that Blofeld from Spectre is going to be in it.
Yeah.
To what extent, we don't know, of course.
Yeah.
But Rami Malek's the new villain. He's got some issues. It appears that he might, based on the trailer, it looks like he might have some sort of... Past history with Léa Seydoux' character.
Possibly.
And you never know with that. It could be someone who she worked for. It could be a brother or...
But we know as much that Léa Seydoux' character has some sort of problematic past that Bond is not certain about, which plays the major key to this whole premise of what's going on with that, since they are together.
And as good as it looks, the movie, based on the trailer, the movie looks more exciting than Spectre was.
Yeah.
And Spectre was a good movie, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
Wasn't as good as Skyfall. No. Or Casino Royale, for that matter, but was better than Quantum. I mean, we could make a better movie than Quantum. But
Quantum was perhaps one of the most simplest script Bond films out there. Yeah. At least of recent years.
Yeah.
Yeah. Compared to the other three films, it's definitely like the shortest and laziest, I guess.
But, I mean, so it doesn't look bad. I have a feeling the script is going to be...
mediocre.
Or the outline of the story, I feel like, is going to be very predictable.
Yeah.
Like, I would need to see the trailer one more time to iterate what I think it's going to be, but I remember telling you or my girlfriend, either one, that, like, I have a feeling it's going to go A, B, C, C1, D. I have a feeling it's going to be a very,
hopefully
just overall
not as
storyline.
Predictable as, like, the Sam Mendes ones. Like
Yeah.
Skyfall Inspector, but maybe it is going to be as... I mean, all the Bond movies, to an extent, are pretty predictable.
Yeah.
So
that's part of the beauty of the franchise, I guess. They're fun.
We know how these are going to end.
Yeah, you know how they're going to end, more or less. They're fairly predictable, but it's not about being excited or surprised by the storyline necessarily for any of the Bonds. No matter all the 20,
Just
however.
Bond being Bond, doing his...
Kicking ass.
Kicking ass and being a great spy, and
Yeah.
the techniques he has.
But, for people like us, Daniel Craig's are the best.
Oh, absolutely.
Let's see, you had Sean Connery, Roger Moore,
Timothy Dalton,
Pierce Brosnan, and George Lazenby, and then Daniel Craig. So you had 6 Bond actors so far.
Mm-hmm.
Daniel Craig for millennials like us, for the most millennials, I think.
And we grew up with him.
We grew up with him. I mean, his first one was what, 2005?
5 or 6, yeah.
5 or 6. So I mean, me and you were
young,
12, 13, something like that. And so I mean, we grew up on him. He's our favorite.
Yeah.
But I mean, the first one I ever saw was Die Another Day. I'm sure that was probably the first one you saw.
Yeah, I believe so.
And that one
growing up on the cheesy Pierce Brosnan.
Yeah, and then the Pierce Brosnan was his were right along with all the rest.
Yeah, it didn't take much time between Pierce and Daniel Craig. That after Pierce finished,
it was only 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, they didn't take much time to get a new Bond and a whole new, fresh look of what the series was going to be.
More serious,
definitely
grounded,
more serious, more simple. Very different from Pierce Brosnan's for sure.
And I would dare say that Pierce Brosnan's were a little bit better than the previous iterations in
performance-wise. I'd say definitely. I think Pierce Brosnan's was a lot more. They did a lot with gadgets and CGI and larger scale.
Yeah.
Tricks.
Because him in the 90s, that's when they were just really starting to get really good
really great graphics and going very big and theatrical with explosions and all that.
Yeah, they could go better on stuff like that as to where the other movies had to rely on a lot of gadgets and stuff.
Yeah.
To be cutting edge.
I mean, you think about Sean Connery, Roger Moore, it was all just stage sets, props, and minor, action sequences and stuff.
But you did have some that I feel like maybe one with George Lazenby.
On Her Majesty's Secret
Service. They, I feel like in that one they were skiing or something, and it could have been a different actor, but I feel like there was skiing.
That was a big part of it.
And there was a big avalanche.
I believe
or
so.
Something.
I believe so.
That couldn't have been easy to do at the time. I mean, that was mid-60s.
No. I mean, it's like the little bit of filmmaking efforts they put into something as big as that.
Yeah.
That's what your budget went to, And today, I think, as these movies go, there's bigger actors, there's bigger productions, there's bigger budgets.
Yeah.
And so they have a lot more they can do with explosions and action sequences and stuff like that. Yeah. Even though the Daniel Craig ones today are still very much more grounded and simple.
Oh, of course.
They still have a lot of kick-ass stuff.
More intense, hand-to-hand, or closer, I guess.
A lot more hand-to-hand combat, I feel like, in his...
Because he doesn't have those gadgets to rely on to...
Simple gadgets, and it's more...
Far away.
His own personal skill, where, you see the old ones rely more on gadgets and big stuff to happen to take down the villain, where Daniel Craig's more personal with his villains, and it's kind of cool. Yeah. I like that. He's tougher.
He is. And, a lot of his movies are like that in general. That's his...
Yeah.
Just the type of character he usually plays.
Yeah. That's Daniel Craig's big go-to acting personas.
Yeah.
Being that kind of guy.
It'll be nice. As much as I love his movies, it'll be nice to see him, just like Robert Downey Jr. as Tony Stark. It'll be nice to see Daniel Craig as a character other than James Bond.
Well, we did get to enjoy a little bit of him in, what was that, Logan Lucky and Knives Out?
Yeah.
Some interesting Southern roles.
Yeah.
Very polar opposite Southern roles, but like very. He definitely gets out there when he's not James Bond.
Yeah.
He
and
does
then something else in the middle
variety.
of the James Bond was Girl with a Dragon Tattoo.
Oh,
very
definitely.
similar in personality and everything.
Yeah.
In a way to James Bond, very uber serious just with the subject matter.
Just more calm and cool.
Yeah.
And...
But he does so good in those movies. Logan Lucky, I would say, was probably my least favorite of the non-Bond roles in between Bond movies.
Film-wise, yeah. Performance-wise, too, that's a bit... I mean, I liked it for his extremities as far as going so...
But it was still a bit...
out there.
Yeah, it was out there for him.
Very out there. But
Knives Out was
a great movie.
Phenomenal.
A great movie.
Yeah. He was phenomenal. The movie was good.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see him in a sequel, which I hear they're doing.
Which is a mistake. But if you...
That's the movie industry today.
That is the movie industry. They'll make a lot of mistakes.
Yeah.
But, I mean, get the right people behind it. I mean, you got Rian Johnson, and hopefully you have a promising idea for a sequel.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of like the Hercule Poirot, Agatha Christie books, you know? Those were books. So, like, you go from Millennials Express to Death on the Nile, that's okay, because those were already novels. Where this is, like, you're trying to write the script for this as you're going.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of pressure to do.
It is interesting, though, that you mentioned the book, because, I mean, that's... And I know the Bond movies have done this, too, I think.
Yeah, Bonds are based on books, too.
Death on the Nile actually came before Murder on the Orient Express? Or you read both the books.
Yeah.
They weren't back-to-back at the very least.
No. As far as which one came first, it may have been Murder on the Express, but I'm not entirely sure. But no, they weren't back-to-back. It's definitely, with the films, they're picking which novels to continue with.
And you have to do that with movies based on book series like that. Especially books with so many books for that one character, you know?
I mean, there's so many novels. So it's like you can't just go from book to book, because some sequel books are not as entertaining as the ones that were 7 or 8 books later.
Yeah.
Like Death on the Nile.
That's true.
And so, definitely.
And then the commercial success of the books has to go to that to some degree, too, as to what they pick. Because like, everyone's heard of Murder in the Orient Express.
And those were both film adaptations way before these upcoming were. So,
that's true.
You know, these are popular stories.
Yeah. But no, back to Bond, looking very forward to seeing Daniel Craig in that role for the last time, to see how the writers, new director, how it all goes.
And then write him off in this final story.
And also preparing for a new Bond.
Which hopefully won't come anytime soon. Hopefully.
It'll probably come sooner than we want, but...
Probably, because that's, again, the film industry, they want to hurry
them
things
out
up
as quick as they can,
Yeah. And they're ready to get a new blood out there.
Yeah. So...
Unfortunate.
Well, we picked some questions out from Quora. I had to explain to Christian what Quora was.
Yeah.
In his defense, I've never used Quora. I did for the first time today.
I'm still not even familiar with Quora.
But, so I didn't subscribe. I made a Quora account. I picked some topics that interest me and us. And
film related, of course.
Most of which are film related. I did some other things too. But I picked some questions off there that people had asked that are film related that we thought we would give our answers to, just to see what's what.
As a couple of youngins.
So let's see. Our first question: which is the most? And all of these, before I go into this, all of these are super subjective, obviously.
Yeah, very broad.
We don't even agree. Oh, just us two on a lot of movie stuff. But just keeping in mind, this is our take, being cinephiles who usually, this year aside, see anywhere from 40 to 60 movies a year. It's our
in theaters
opinions.
Alone.
In theaters, yes.
Yeah.
Anyway, so our first question is, which is the most misunderstood film of all time? Me and you discussed this.
We were going back and forth on a couple of ideas.
We did end up agreeing that pretty much Inception.
Definitely.
Is probably one of, if not the most misunderstood movie.
Absolutely.
Because it's that ending. It's the goddamn
Christopher Nolan interpretation. So
Yeah.
I got it.
And like, what's your view on the spinning the top? I think it's called a top. It's spinning. What's your view? What is?
Well, as we
what's
know,
happening?
like Inception, the premise, delving into a dream state, and there's like 3 sublevels of like the dream state, and trying to get back to what's a dream and what's reality.
Yeah.
And then in the very end of the film, we see Leonardo DiCaprio out and
He spins the top.
spins the top.
If the top keeps spinning,
Yeah.
it's a dream.
Yeah. And then, it's spinning and spinning and spinning, and then we kind of see it kind of, that's how you tilt.
Some people don't think it's.
Yeah. Well, and that's how Christopher Nolan designed it, was to be a big interpretation as far as, what do you think? And, but in my personal opinion, as far as we can see that the top was starting to go a little off. So.
Yeah, and like the whole. I agree. I think it's pretty clear that the top is starting to wobble.
Mm-hmm.
It takes a long time. It's building the suspense, but the top is starting to wobble. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It is.
I mean, I think a lot of people don't want to, want to have their own view or theory on it,
And that's fine.
and not go. And I mean, Christopher Nolan won't answer like what he actually thinks, but that's why it's up to you. But at the same time,
it is up to you.
it is.
But at the same time, I think another part of why it's misunderstood is it really doesn't matter.
yeah,
Like to Leonardo DiCaprio's character.
yeah, it really doesn't matter.
His wife having killed herself, getting fucked up in the head over living in that dream for so long.
Yeah,
And being separated from his children for so long. I think a real big reason why it's misunderstood, in addition to the top or not spinning, the whole point of the ending is that it really doesn't matter. He's at a point to where, real or not real, he can finally just be happy.
yeah,
You can debate philosophically whether or not being
Yeah.
happy in a dream state is true happiness. But at the end of the day, say it's all an illusion.
Mm-hmm.
I'm real, and from my perspective, I'm real, you're not real, nothing else is real. As long as it doesn't hurt any other theoretical people, me being real is what matters. And
Yeah.
I think that's the point of the movie.
yeah. I agree
He
with you.
knows he's real. As long as he's happy, it really doesn't matter.
Definitely, and I think you're right on that one. Mm-hmm.
But, and it's little things like that. I mean, we could name a dozen movies that the ending is ambiguous, that
Yeah.
people argue about.
Yeah,
But it's just like at the end of the day, you're missing the real point of the movie.
yeah. And it takes you gotta watch these films like that a couple more times to get a grounded idea of what, not just what you think the ending is, but like what did Christopher Nolan's vision of it was. What did the filmmakers and the actors and like the characters and all that, when it leads up to that final moment, like what do you think, not in your own perspective, but put your shoes in the film and be like, okay, this is where I think this may have tried to go to.
Yeah.
And so it's not just in your own perspective. So you got to kind of like
Get out of your own head.
get out of your own head and see it in the other light. So
Yeah.
definitely.
No, and I think regardless of what you think about the further meaning of the ending of the film or the top, I mean, I think we could all agree that Inception is definitely one of the top, if not the most misunderstood film. I think that's...
I mean, when we were talking about films and, like ideas of movies that, for this question, which is the most understood film, I was like, Inception was like, right there, like, yeah, that's, one of the bigger ones.
Yeah.
So
So,
but yeah.
Our second question, and we don't know all of each other's choices for all of these questions.
Yeah, we have our own handful of picks as far as films for these questions.
So this one, how many books can you think of that were made into good movies? For this one, we picked 5 that we could think of that we like, that we really like. So name a couple of yours.
Well, big fan of films, big fan of books. So I try to pick the ones that I felt like were one of my favorites. but also one of the ones that, like, from book to screen were also the most similar, most accurate as far as what the author did and what the filmmakers did. And so, that being said, there was an accumulation of thoughts that go into, like, what's the best movies here. One, for sure, was Horns, starring Daniel Radcliffe in the film, written by Joe Hill, the son of Stephen King. And I've read the book, I've seen the film, and both are, it's a great book, and it's a better film, in my opinion. And from book to screen, it was just so...
Who was the female lead in that?
Juna Temple.
That's right.
Juna Temple, and it had Heather Graham. And so...
That is a good movie.
It is a good movie. It's a better movie than the book, in my opinion.
Yeah, a lot of them.
And there's not a lot of times where you can say the film was better than the book. But, again, there are films that are better than books.
There are. I've read so few books that have been made into films. Because usually I see the films first.
Yeah, same.
And I don't want to ruin my idea of the film
by reading the book.
So, like, the very few that I have read, I end up liking the movie better than the book.
Yeah.
But I'm sure overall, it's in book to movie scenarios. Usually it's the book that's better.
I mean, books have more pages that get more elaborate in details and all that kind of stuff. And another one that came into my mind as far as being a great movie and also a great book, and that also, like, from book to screen is just so on the page accurate and similar and, like, not a huge differences. Minor, but not a lot. Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. One of the best books ever written. One of the most outrageous films ever made, and to say the least. And it's one of my personal favorites, both book and film. And I love it, and it's great. And it's definitely, like, you could say, like, books that you think were made into great movies. That's definitely one of them. Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas is just a cult classic for sure.
Yeah.
So, what about you, Aaron?
My first one would be Silence of the Lambs. That's one of my all-time favorite movies. Read the book. The book is also one of my favorite books. Thomas Harris, I think, is a phenomenal writer.
Yeah.
And everyone who did the movie, Jonathan Demme, Anthony Hopkins, just that whole movie was just perfect. It was entertaining. It was very well made.
And you had Anthony Hopkins.
And really what helped make him solidified him, I guess would be a better word, as a classic star of the latter half of the 20th and 21st century.
Definitely.
And then my next one would be The Godfather. Also one of my favorite movies. Also one of my favorite books. That's one of the few exceptions for me that I like the book. I love the movie. Fucking love the movie. I love the book.
Oh, yeah. I know you do.
Love the book so much more.
Yeah.
It's just Mario Puzo did.
I mean, great films, too.
Oh, yeah. All three of them are fantastic, in my opinion. The third one's a little misunderstood.
Yeah. That was my favorite one, was Godfather Part 3.
Yeah.
I love that one.
But no, the films were fantastic. The movie was fantastic. But yeah, The Godfather. That was part of The Godfather. Part 2 was based on the book The Godfather, but that's a whole other conversation. But that would be my second one.
Definitely. And so, like, when I think of great authors of books in which the films then adapt from and you try to make it as good as the books are, there are times where it's the opposite, where the films have done more than the books have. Well, at least what I'm trying to get at is help narrow the books, because sometimes books can go off, like,
way
totally
off
off.
in the weeds.
And not to call anybody out, but, like, in particular, this author, Stephen King, just saying, I mean, great author. I mean, he's a great storyteller, but he gets very elaborate, very detailed, and he starts going off. And, like, okay, so people probably get where this is going. The book It, fantastic book, great characters, and not the TV movie in particular with Tim Curry, even though Tim Curry was brilliant. I'm focused on the
2017 movie.
Yes. The part 1, part 2 of the recent ones. they broke those up into 2 parts.
Mm-hmm.
And they did a lot with, elaborating on the characters, the children, the Losers Club, Pennywise, and help funnel the story, condensing it to what it was about originally, like the Losers Club, Derry, the town, and Pennywise, and not going off onto all these different side characters and side stories that didn't really make sense for
the ending of the
ending and the point of the book. Yeah. In which, if you've read it, it's a long book, and it's a bunch of flashbacks and flash forwards and present day and this and that and this and that, and it's like, chapters to bottom chapters are like completely different stories going on, and like trying to get back to what the whole story is about. Where the films just kind of like cut all that out and stick to the main
part.
is
something I was curious about. So the movie, obviously, part 1 is just them as kids.
Yeah.
And then part 2 is mainly them as adults with some flashbacks when they were kids.
Yeah.
The book isn't like that, correct? Like, the book is like one chapter is kids, one chapter is adults, one chapter could be kids, one chapter is adults, right? It's
exactly.
Not split up
it's kind of like how they did part 2, where you have the stories with the older, present day adults, and then the flashback kids. That's how the chapters were. It's like one is like the adults, then one is them as the Losers Club kids, and then you go back and go back and go back and back. And
see, that would be super annoying for me as a reader. Like,
exactly, and that's why I was annoyed.
And like, I'm glad they did
exhausting.
Movies like that, because like the second movie was good, or It Part 2, but like It Part 1 was so much better.
Yeah,
to me,
it had a lot more backstory, and it kind of helped build up the whole, scenario with Pennywise and the kids, and like how everything came to light. Yeah, and then the sequel was them as adults and kind of go back and finish the job. Yeah, type thing. But like, I think that's this Andy Muschietti, the director. I mean, he did a brilliant job into putting Stephen King's book into 2 great motion pictures, and putting his book into like a great theatrical like experience that you don't get too lost of. And they're long movies. It's not like he shortcut them at all. He took his time and he made them very good.
That's true.
And any fan of Stephen King and the book of It, like me, I mean, you see these films, that he put a lot of respect and tribute and honor and like a lot of accuracies and similarities to the film, so that he's not shortchanging it at all. Yeah. So that's one of the better ones.
What are the last 2 films on your list for this question?
Well, one's kind of more broad. I mean, Harry Potter. Yeah. I love the books. I'd say I've read at least the last few: Order of the Phoenix, Half-Blood Prince, and Deathly Hallows.
You read the first few too, didn't you?
Yeah, but I was like a kid, so I don't remember them as super well. But the films in general, like, it doesn't matter how great the books are for me. Like, the films were brilliant. The cast, Daniel Radcliffe, and the sets, the directing, all of it was just great movies. And probably not from film to film, whereas by the book, accurate and consistent. But that's okay, because Hollywood has to take their own spin on things, and have to make films more condensed, more shorter. Yeah. But I just think overall the Harry Potter franchise is one of the few book series that they made a motion picture from every single book, and so that's pretty big. And that's just a great, successful franchise. So I picked Harry Potter because I think popular books, popular films. And it's not every day that you get a series of books that are as popular and loved as the films as well. Yeah. And the Harry Potter, in general. Yeah. If it's the books, if it's the films, if it's all that together.
That's true.
It's just very successful and very beloved. And, I grew up with that. Yeah. And so it was a big part of my childhood, and I still love it to this day. And, yeah, it's a great world, then the Crucible, Arthur Miller, right? I think.
Arthur Miller, 1953.
Arthur Miller. I read that when I was in...
probably middle school or high school, right?
I was in high school, and it was one of our,
Required?
It was a required book. It was English literature, and it was... we were doing, like, Centurion, like, goth periods, I guess. Like, The Scarlet Letter, and Beowulf, and The Crucible, and other things like that. And so I read the Crucible, and I just loved the book. It's a great book.
It is.
And then we got to see the film after we finished the book in class as well. And I fell in love with the film. And then like Winona Ryder and Daniel Day-Lewis were just freaking phenomenal. And it's just a great story. And
Daniel Day-Lewis is phenomenal in everything.
And it's a great movie.
But especially in that.
And that's another one where book to film were just so, I mean, you know, toe to toe.
The book
like
was just as moving, if not, or the movie was just as moving as the book was.
Yeah, I would say so.
Especially in the ending and how Daniel Day-Lewis, if not more so than the book was.
Yeah.
Because of seeing the emotion at the end.
Absolutely.
And the courage that it took.
It's crazy. But that always stuck to me as a kid, and I've always loved that story.
Yeah.
And I loved the film. And that's another one where I just felt like, you know, if you've read it and you've seen it, you know, they go hand in hand, and there's not much huge differences between the two. And that's my list of films.
And you know, The Crucible, I feel like, is one of those things that I feel like not as many people know as should that that's based on a true story.
Yeah, you would hope they would.
But so many people don't.
So many people
but
don't.
That's everything in that story is true.
Scarlet Witch. The Salem Witch Trials.
Salem Witch Trials. Like that is a very, as sad as that is a very true story. Like there's not much there that's embellished.
And I think a lot of people read that story and they're thinking, this is very dramatic and crazy, and like this would have never happened.
Like that's real fucking life, dude.
And that's real fucking life, you know? Yeah, like Hitler's Germany and World War II and concentration camps happened. I mean, there are things in history that we're like, seriously?
Yeah.
And it happened. And I mean, I guess Crucible and the Salem Witch Trials was so crazy that people think this is just a fun, fictitious, story because this is just too bizarre.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, that's some true shit. And and that's what also made me love it so much, because it's like that's some dark crap, and but it was so engaging and so entertaining. And Arthur Miller, you know, he just wrote it in such a brilliant.
And of course, he wrote it from the guise of what was happening in the 50s at that time, with the House Un-American Activities and the crackdown against communists and socialists. So it had a special double meaning for him, and a double meaning even at the time.
Yeah.
But so I mean, it's, you know, echoing what's happened multiple times throughout history and some sort of quote-unquote witch hunts. I hate to use that in this climate with our president, but at the same time, like throughout history, there have been actual witch hunts.
Yeah, and I mean,
it's in one way or another, and it's sad.
And that sort of craziness and superstition and neuroticness is still alive today.
Yeah, in some form or fashion.
In some form or fashion. I mean, it doesn't just because it's history doesn't mean it stays history.
Yeah, history
does repeat itself, and in some form or fashion, like you said. And but yeah, if you've not read or seen any of those, I strongly recommend it.
Yeah.
And what are the last on your list?
Casino Royale is on my list. Specifically movie-wise for the Daniel Craig Casino Royale. I haven't seen the David Niven one in a long time.
The actual license and production.
But that version of Casino Royale, and then the book. Haven't read the book on that one.
Okay.
I don't know. I have a feeling that out of all of the ones that we've listed here, that's probably the one that's least like the book. Just because of how technologically advanced it is, and how I'm sure the book wasn't, since it was written so long ago. Yeah. But that is it's a really good movie. It's one of the best Bonds to me. It's one of my favorite movies. Definitely top 20 favorite movies at least, I would say, maybe.
Of your total films?
That might not be true. Yeah.
That's saying something.
I forget that I own like 200 Blu-rays and things like that. Used to own 600. So yeah, but it's definitely on my top most enjoyable movies at least.
Yeah, that's our list.
So Casino Royale is one. The Count of Monte Cristo is another. There have been many adaptations of that film-wise, TV-wise. I'm specifically thinking I don't know what year it was made, but the one starring Jim Caviezel and Guy Pearce.
Oh, yeah. I've seen that one like a couple times.
The original book written by Alexander Dumas. Read that when I was a kid.
Alexander Dumas, didn't he write The Three Musketeers?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Three Musketeers, Man in the Iron Mask.
All that.
Written by him. The book. It's interesting reading the book. I don't know if all of his books were like this, but I know this one was for sure. The chapters kind of end on little cliffhangers, like every single chapter basically does. And it's because it was published, as a lot of them were back then, it was published in a newspaper. Like a weekly newspaper. So, like, to try to entice people to want to read the next chapter, it had to end on cliffhanger. So it's a very interesting reading the book. Like, it's almost like a TV series written down in a way.
Yeah.
But then the book or the movie, very underrated movie in my opinion. Jim Caviezel was just phenomenal as Edmond Dantes. One of Guy Pearce's best roles to me. Richard Harris, probably one of his last 5 movies before he passed away. And
Richard Harris, Albus Dumbledore.
The original.
The OG.
But a very good movie. I don't think it did that well in the box office, unfortunately, which partially why I say it's underrated. There were some, of course, no movie is perfect, but I love that movie.
Yeah, it's a classic.
It is. And then my final one would be Schindler's List. Of course, that is based on the true story of Oskar Schindler and World War II, but it is based. The movie itself is based off of a book. I don't recall who it was written by. I think it was a survivor or one of the children, something like that. Don't quote me on that. But it was based off of a book. Semi-autobiography, something like that.
That's a great film.
And it was actually called something else. The book, I think, was called something else. But no, like, that's great film. That's one of my goals, is to read that book one day.
Yeah, very good one.
But that's definitely one of mine.
Yeah.
So question 3, what are some of the most underrated movies, in your opinion? That's interesting.
Yeah. It was a quick thought on... I mean, I love a lot of films that are underrated. Most of my favorite films, actually, are underrated.
Yeah.
And, they're not necessarily great cinematic masterpieces by any means. But still good movies in some form or fashion. And so I started with one of my more cheesiest, underrated films, and that was Land of the Lost, which was a film adaptation from the original TV series Land of the Lost. And this starred Will Ferrell and Danny McBride. And why I consider this as one of my unrated movies, because first of all, if you've never seen it, it's freaking hilarious. It's funny as hell. It's stupid. And it's so freaking extreme. It's got dinosaurs and lizard people and giant crabs. And it's got Will Ferrell. And, I mean... There's
definitely
a lot of...
not for everyone.
No, it's definitely not for everyone. But if you are a fan of comedy and like Will Ferrell films, for sure, you think about all the big movies he's done that are huge, that were huge successes, like Anchorman and Step Brothers and Zoolander and all these other films. But yet no one freaking talks about Land of the Lost. And it just kind of hurts because it's one of my favorite films of his, and it's definitely one of the funniest. I mean, like I said, dumb, but like the props and just everything in that movie was just so hilariously written. And yeah.
And even as someone who doesn't really care for Will Ferrell films,
yeah.
Like,
yeah, sure you don't.
I would agree. Like, I'm not a fan of his movies.
Yeah. No.
There is one movie in particular. Step Brothers is good.
Oh yeah.
Talladega Nights. I feel like
definitely.
There's one movie of his that I actually do.
You do like Casa de Mi Padre.
Casa de Mi Padre is pretty good. There's another one that's Get Hard.
Oh,
Get Hard is probably my favorite film of his.
That's pretty good.
But out of all of his movies, as someone who really isn't a huge fan of his, Just his style of comedy is kind of like Jim Carrey. But it is odd to me that Land of the Lost isn't higher on his list of
most successful popular films.
Yeah.
I know. It's kind of
like
wild.
it's it's a remake of a TV series that I feel wasn't very popular even in its day.
Not huge.
It's kind of like Dark Shadows. Like I get why it didn't do well.
I should have put that on
more ways than one.
Yeah.
But anyway, so what are some of your others?
Okay, Secret Window, based on a short story by Stephen King, directed by David Cope, starred Johnny Depp. I think that was made in 2003, I believe. And Johnny Depp's done quite a lot of underrated, unpopular films.
Well, most of his stuff before Pirates.
Be
considered underrated.
Yeah, that's fair. But even after he's done The Professor,
Yeah.
But Secret Window was just so easy, simple, enjoyable movie. I mean, I think Johnny Depp was fantastic. David Cope was a fantastic director. The writing was simple enough, but like intriguing. And you had Maria Bello and John Turturro, and that thing had a great cast. And
I forgot Maria Bello was in that.
But what made it so intriguing was just like really the writing of it, and how they carried on the characters and everything was just so brilliantly done. It's a short movie, but it's just one of those movies you can just sit down. You don't really have anything on your mind. You just pop in Secret Window and you watch it because it's just one of those elegant films that you can just relax to. Mm-hmm. And it's just underrated because it wasn't really hugely successful. No one really talks about it, and it's a shame.
Yep.
The Counselor.
Ooh, that's a good one.
One of Ridley Scott's best freaking movies he's ever directed, with hugely intense, based from the Cormac McCarthy screenplay actually.
Really?
Yeah, who wrote No Country for Old Men.
Okay.
And I mean that's a great movie. It had Michael Fassbender, Cameron Diaz, Javier Bardem, Brad Pitt, and I mean it had a great cast. It was very intense and well written.
Penelope
Cruz, violent and just dark. Very
definitely
dark.
not. I could see where it wouldn't be for everybody.
No, but
definitely underrated. I agree.
It should have done more in the box office, and it should have been more widely received for nominations. And then another one that was a remake horror slasher, Child's Play in 2019, took a whole new take on Chucky, and it was a whole new style. It wasn't even like the same. You can't even really compare them because they're so different. And Mark Hamill took the job as voicing Chucky this time instead of Brad Dourif, who did a fantastic job. But Mark Hamill brought such a new, creepy, but also sweet, odd style to Chucky's persona that you're so intrigued by him. Mm-hmm. Makes him a lot more likable than I think the original Chucky. And I thought the film was a lot more well developed.
Yeah.
A lot more violent.
It was so good though, and honestly, like Mark Hamill, I didn't want to see that at all because I'm not.
Yeah, I dragged you to see that.
But Mark Hamill's the only reason I was actually getting excited about that, and like I'm glad I did go to see it because it was such a fresh take,
very fresh,
and it was. I don't know. It was just so much better than the originals. And
definitely,
I definitely agree that it should have gotten
a little bit more praise,
more notice and praise than it did.
And the last one I had on my list was Arthur, which was also based on one, but they made two older films, Arthur, I think it was called Off the Rocks or On the Rocks or something like that. And so Arthur was Russell Brand. And what's great about that movie, I mean, you had Helen Mirren and, what's her name, Jennifer Gardner?
Was she in those?
Yeah, she was in that.
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
And I mean, it was a very fun movie. And what I liked about Russell Brand was that he picked characters, not original characters. Like I said, Arthur was based from, like wasn't a book or something like that. Maybe
there were. I don't know what the original, but there were two movies with Dudley Moore in the 70s.
Yeah, there were
80s.
at least two movies for sure.
I don't know what it was based on. It might have been.
But Russell Brand finds a way to take his own personal struggles of life and his own issues and put it into his characters.
Yeah.
And so playing a character like Arthur was like kind of like a journal in a way for Russell Brand. Yeah. And so he put a lot of himself into that role, and it was very, it's a very sweet movie. Mm-hmm. And it's very fun. And I don't think a lot of people don't seem to talk about it as much, or, talk about like great Russell Brand pictures, but that's definitely one of them. And I love that movie. It's a great movie, and I say it all the time. And I think that's one that definitely people need to check out if you haven't seen it, is Arthur. It's just so hilarious and so sweet. And I mean, that's all I can say about that. And so anyways, what are some of the few movies on your list, Aaron?
Meet Joe Black is at the top of my list.
Still haven't seen that.
God, I need to see it one day. It's a long movie. It's 3 hours, 3.5 hours on the like. It's a long movie. So I definitely understand partially why, but it's such a good movie. Just to give a brief overview, it's a loose remake of an older movie called Death Takes a Holiday. But Death, like the angel of death, whatever you want to call it, embodies a person because wants to see what it's like to be human. And ends up coming to Anthony Hopkins' character, who is a media mogul, Rupert Murdoch-esque type person. Mm-hmm. Not, depending on your point of view, not evil like Rupert Murdoch, but not to get too political. But a media mogul like that, rich, 2 daughters, is very close to one, has issues with the other. But death comes, wants to see what it's like to be human. So Anthony Hopkins shows him about what it's like to be human from an ultra-rich 1% perspective, at least. Death ends up falling in love, wants to take the person he loves with him, and Anthony Hopkins ends up getting to understand why that's not good. Very moving movie. Every time I watch it, it makes me think about death. Like, it's one of those movies that, like, I love it so much, but I have to really pick when I watch it because, like...
Yeah, because you don't want to think about that all the time.
I will have death on the brain for a good 3 or 4 days after I watch that movie. About, like, actually me physically dying. So, like, I love it, and it's underrated, but, like...
But it also takes a little bit of mental toll on you.
You gotta be careful. Yeah, it does. So I definitely understand. And then it's 3 hours, too. Like, there's some business stuff in there, like Anthony Hopkins' business, that they cut out in, like, the airplane version or bus version of movies that I can or even the TV version. That's, like, really unnecessary to the overall plot, but does add something to what Anthony Hopkins shows Brad Pitt.
And I'd rather just watch the full scope.
It can be like to be human.
Yeah.
And where he finds his passion in life from his business. So, like, I get it. And for me, it doesn't take away from the movie, but I can get where 3 hours is a lot.
But so anytime you cut back a movie and stuff from what it's fully supposed to be like,
you're losing something.
And then, you've seen the full version, and then you go and watch it like on TV or on an airplane or something like that, and you can tell it's been condensed. It's just like, I can tell.
Yeah, definitely. But another movie on my list is Mr. Brooks.
Oh,
Kevin Costner, Dane Cook.
It's a great movie.
The redhead from CSI Miami, I think.
And that girl.
That girl, yeah.
I can't think of her name. She's a childhood actor,
but
anyways,
that was a really good movie. It was originally supposed to be
William Hurt.
First William Hurt. He was so good in that. It was supposed to be the first in a trilogy. And unfortunately, the movie just didn't do well enough to do a sequel or a trilogy. And honestly, I don't really think it needed to. I would have enjoyed them.
It ended.
Like, it didn't end where it needed one.
Precisely. It could have opened for one, but it also was a good closed door, too.
It was. I would have enjoyed sequels. But, like, just that movie alone. One of Kevin Costner's best works, in my opinion.
Definitely.
By far.
Definitely.
And I love Kevin Costner as an actor.
Mm-hmm.
But that movie is just, it's fairly... Demi Moore. She has her good moments, and that was one of them.
It was Demi Moore, wasn't it?
Yeah,
she's
but it was a fairly quick movie, pretty fast paced. I really enjoyed it, and I definitely think that's an underrated one.
I love the part when Kevin Costner kills Dane Cook. Because I don't
Spoiler
like
alert.
Dane Cook. Oh, yeah. Sorry. Well, yeah, spoiler alert, but also, if you haven't seen it, that's your fault. That's an old movie. Oh, well.
When you hear spoiler alert, just fast forward like 15 seconds.
Yeah. If you haven't seen Mr. Brooks yet.
So, another one on my list is Clue.
Oh.
The 1980, I want to say 86.
Tim
movie?
Curry.
Oh God, there's so many people in that. Tim Curry, Martin Mull, Christopher Lloyd, Eileen Brennan. There's several other people who aren't as big in names
Lloyd,
now.
that was a good one.
I love that movie. That's something of a cult classic.
Definitely.
Based on the board game, didn't do well in the box office at all when it was
surprising.
released. But it has definitely become a cult classic movie now.
And that's the funny thing about underrated films, too.
They frequently
Later
do.
down the road, it's more of a cult classic than... It's like, I think Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas wasn't even a huge movie back when it came out, but now it's like so praised.
So many movies. Like Willy Wonka didn't do well in the box office.
Wow.
Did
and yet,
really good
look how
later.
classic that is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, I definitely think that Clue falls in that category. It's got mystery, it's got some drama, some excitement, some comedy. Obviously, it is a comedy.
Like some good comic relief.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everyone in that movie was just cast brilliantly, regardless of whether they were big known names later down the road.
But still well casted, yeah.
Very well casted, very well written, fun. Everyone should see it, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. And that's been one of my favorites since I was in first or second grade.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's our cat Sherlock. His brother Watson is over here just staring at us.
Yes.
No, another one on my list is The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. Specifically the Daniel Craig, Rooney Mara one.
We got to be specific on that. Great movie.
Absolutely love that movie. It's a very intense movie.
Oh,
in multiple reasons. Definitely not for everyone. Definitely need to look up trigger warnings before you see or try to see that movie.
Definitely. There are some scenes.
But if you look up trigger warnings and things like that and you're going to be okay, definitely see it.
Oh, yeah.
I wish they would have continued the saga with those actors instead of making a follow-up movie that's not related to that. Rooney Mara, everyone in that movie did a fantastic job.
I'm just so surprised because there was times where they were talking about continuing that specific.
Like they were really going to, but then they just.
And then the fucking studio just like no.
And like it was one of those movies that like it was right on the edge of being profitable.
Yeah.
And not so like I get it, but like
I remember seeing that in theaters. It was definitely like not as highly praised and like accepted as it should have been back when it was in theaters.
And like
and it's still today, it's like people don't
and maybe it's because of how intense it is.
It is intense,
but it's so good. I mean, Daniel Craig, Rooney Mara, Robin Wright, Stellan Skarsgård.
Who directed that?
David Fincher.
David Fincher. I love David Fincher's work.
And
I mean, he did a brilliant job with that movie.
That it was absolutely brilliant, and I'm disappointed that it didn't get more recognition. But more so, like they did. What was that last movie? The Girl in the Spider's Web. Like Claire Foy did all right, but like if you're gonna make a follow-up movie, my God, just use the fantastic actors that were in The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo.
Rooney Mara would have done it.
She would have done it. Daniel Craig was probably the issue, but like I feel like either if you would have waited or worked with his schedule, I feel like he would have done it too.
Yeah, probably.
But like that's one of mine. And then my last one is Chappie. Neil Blomkamp, is that his name? The District 9
right.
Something else. I don't remember what the other movie is. South African dude. The movie's set in South Africa.
That's right.
Sigourney
Weaver in that?
Yeah.
Sigourney Weaver.
Sigourney Weaver, Hugh Jackman, Dev Patel. I can't remember the guy's name who voiced Chappie.
Right.
What was his name? Is
he a known actor?
Yeah. And his name, I know his name isn't said like it looks because it is also a South African name. It's a little different. Let's see. Okay, so Dev Patel, Hugh Jackman, Sigourney Weaver, a couple other people. The voice of Chappie is Sholto Copley. Forgive me if I'm not saying that right.
Yes.
And then it's got, and this is some of the controversial parts that I understand why a lot of people might not want to see it, who are more sensitive to stuff like that, is Dee Antford.
Oh, I've heard.
They're very controversial in more than one ways, justifiably so. I still think that this movie is just absolutely phenomenal. It deals with the moral issues behind creating AI, behind a lot of things as far as technology and robotics that I don't think we're even relatively close to technology-wise, but someday down the line, if we haven't blown ourselves up first, 200-300 years, that could be something that we might be dealing with as a species.
Sure.
And this movie dealt with that in such a moving way, I thought.
Yeah.
Definitely, that's what I would end my list with.
That's definitely a good one.
So, next question. Oh, sorry, buddy. What are some movies that scarred you the most growing up? Which movie scarred you most growing up?
Ooh, this was an easy one for me.
You have a lot more than I did.
I grew up watching some stuff that is like just so intensely scarring today, but as a kid
can fuck you up.
And it's caused me lots of phobias and heebie-jeebies. But just to run down this list because I make it quick for you, Men in Black.
Oh God,
is number one because fuck bugs.
It's the villain in that. It's the exterminator.
The villain is a huge, nasty ass roach, and like roaches are already gross, and then you have to make like a huge villain from a roach. Oh jeez, and it wasn't just the villain himself being a big bug. It was like there's beetles throughout the movie. I mean, you see it crawling into things. Yeah, that's just nasty, freaking gross. And as a kid, I still today don't really watch a lot of Men in Black because I just can't.
And I mean, like,
deal with that.
When did that movie come out? 97. Men in Black. Yeah, 97. We were.
Yeah. Well, I was born in 93, yeah.
Yeah, we were both born in 93, so we were 3 when that came out. So that was probably a very early movie that we remember seeing. And that probably too early, honestly.
I think so.
Because like that's the number one on my list. Is like my fear of cockroaches to this day definitely stems from that movie.
I would agree.
Without a doubt.
I would agree. And my second one is Jaws.
Pretty classic.
And I love shark movies and all that, and I still love Jaws. But yeah, Jaws, I mean, come on, that's just scary and violent and animatronic and it just and that, even as a kid, you're watching horror shark movies, it's like, okay, I definitely don't want to go to the beach, and you're scared of that. And to this day, I still count this as one of the scariest horror movies. Darkness Falls.
Who's in that?
I don't know.
Like, that just doesn't ring any bells off the top of my head.
But it's based on that, like, demonic tooth fairy. And the way they portrayed her and just... I remember as a kid, the opening sequence. There's a little kid under the bed sheets, hears things, pulls the sheets, the fucking tooth fairy's right there, grabs the mom from the door, floating above the door open, and like it's just such a creepy movie. It makes your skin crawl just thinking about it. And I remember like a couple of years ago I rewatched it since I was a kid thinking I wonder if it was as creepy as I remembered it to be, and it was so freaking creepy. Darkness Falls.
That's funny.
Sleepy Hollow. I was staying at my grandparents'. They had a video of that. And I don't know if I put it in myself or if they put it in, or that would be kind of bad grandparenting if they put it in for me. But Yeah, Sleepy Hollow with that Tim Burton one with Johnny Depp, and that was, oh my god, I mean, beheadings and blood and just that was a very suspensefully gothic picture as a kid, and that gave me a lot of nightmares. Deep Blue Sea, my second shark movie. The biggest one was when that huge shark comes up and grabs Samuel L. Jackson and chomps him up, and that really stuck with me. And then, I mean, there were some huge sharks in that movie. I put that twice, Sleepy Hollow. So yeah, Deep Blue Sea was definitely the other bigger shark movie. So yeah, I mean, between Headless Horsemen and demons and sharks and roaches, I've been scarred by a lot of pictures.
Mine, like I said, Men in Black is my number one. Like, I know that my shark phobia came from, or my shark phobia, Jesus Christ. I don't
roach phobia?
My roach phobia definitely came from Men in Black.
Yeah,
like
definitely.
that, I remember having that on VHS when I was 5, 6 and watching it. And like that, I loved that movie as a kid, but like that fucked me up.
Yeah.
Really, I don't feel like there are any other movies that really scarred me. There are just a lot of movies that I saw too early.
Too mature.
Like, too young.
Yeah.
Like, I saw Braveheart when I was, like, 5 or 6. That's too young.
For such a, grotesquely dramatic, intense film.
And there are several other movies like that. I mean, Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves with Kevin Costner. Saw that really young. That's an intense-ish movie. The Patriot. I mean, the list goes on.
Oh, man, I remember Patriot. Yeah.
One of the ones that I think would be close to scarring, but not quite, would be Deliverance.
Was that the one with
Burt Reynolds?
Oh.
In the 70s.
Never mind. I never saw that. Okay.
The Banjo in the Woods. Like, that's a fucked up movie.
Is it?
And, like, I saw that with my mom when I was, like, 7.
Your mother dragged you to too many damn
Well, we saw
movies.
that, like, at home, like, on TV.
Oh, okay.
Or not on TV, on DVD or something like that. And, like, that's definitely something I don't think anybody under, like, 20 should be allowed to watch.
Wow.
And that's probably...
Was that rated R?
I think it says rated R, NC-17 maybe.
Oh, wow.
It's an intense movie. I saw that way too young. That probably did scar me in some ways, maybe some unconscious ways. Or subconscious ways, I should say. So our next question is, what long movie, time-wise, captivated your attention and why?
I mean, there's so many great,
There's so
extensively long films.
many. Yeah.
I mean,
Our
damn.
top one that we agreed is probably the most captivating is Wolf of Wall Street.
Yeah. By Martin Scorsese.
Martin Scorsese, Leonardo DiCaprio, Margot Robbie.
Jonah Hill.
Jonah Hill, just a huge cast of people in some form or fashion.
Yeah. 3 hours, that film.
3 hours, like, on the dot.
On the dot.
And, like, it doesn't feel like I remember seeing that in theaters. And, like, it went by like that. It really did. Like, it's nonstop. Nonstop. It's funny. There's a little bit of everything. It's kind of sad in some ways.
It's a little violent. There's a lot of profanity, drugs, alcohol, nudity.
Just
I mean,
overall, it's a
plethora of things. It's an intense film.
But it's always going. There's never a dull moment. Like, you don't have a chance to. It's not overwhelming.
What I noticed too is, like, Scorsese, you can kind of notice each hour. I mean, it's one movie, but each hour kind of breaks up a little bit as far as where the story is. Like,
kind of like part one, part two, part three.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And you can tell in that movie that that's how he takes it, and it helps because, like, Scorsese knew, like, within each hour how to make this part so engaging and, like, just your eyes are glued to the screen.
Yeah.
That's a great movie.
That's definitely out of all of the ones, and we just watched, like, Gladiator. That's like 3 hours or something. We watched that the other day again.
Right, but
there's tons of movies that are so long that are really captivating, really engaging. I had a couple more listed here. We won't go super in depth into them, but Schindler's List for me, that's 3 hours. That's definitely not for everybody. I get not a lot of people can watch that all the way through multiple times. Mm-hmm. The Godfather 2, another one for me, generally is very, very well captivating. And then Meet Joe Black. What are some of yours?
For the DCEU, I definitely have to say Batman versus Superman. Just so many characters and stuff, and so well done. There Will Be Blood. I mean, I think that was a Oscar winner.
Yeah,
I don't know if that one.
I think so.
Best Picture, Best Actor.
Yeah,
and I mean one of the best films ever done. If you haven't seen that, do see it. And like you were talking about 3-hour films, that is just so like wow, that was 3 hours. Mm-hmm. Avengers Endgame.
Yeah.
I mean,
not a huge fan of those movies, but yeah, I have to agree.
Yeah.
It was
purely entertaining though, and like went by so quick.
Yeah.
And that's definitely like one of the best, longest pictures. Yeah, for sure.
So our last question is, and we're 90s babies, we're millennials, both born in 93. List your 5 favorite films from the 90s. I know this one hit particularly well home for us, being 90s babies. You know, that's the first movies I remember seeing were in the 90s. So like this was a hard choice.
You go to your iconic holiday cult classic, Home Alone, hits the ballpark as being one of the most beloved movies ever for anybody. Yeah. Honestly, it's a great picture. Mission Impossible, branched to such an insanely successful, successful franchise. Tom Cruise, and that was fantastic. The Mummy with Brendan Fraser, probably Stephen Sommers' best movie, and Brendan Fraser's best film. Just fantastic. Austin Powers, The International Man of Mystery, that kicked off the freaking Austin Powers trilogy, and that was just Mike Myers' most stellar, funniest crap I've ever seen.
Shrek, sir.
Oh, Shrek. Live action, okay. not voice. I'll be specific. Yeah, Shrek is also great. And Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. Again, one of the most cult classic, outrageous, insane things out there that I honestly don't know any other movies from the 90s that is so bizarre. Like, that's a very unique film.
Yeah.
And so that's definitely, I would say, a few of the 90s films.
So are those in any particular order? Because I ordered mine in my most to least favorite.
Oh, yeah, no order for me. Those are all just like, I just jotted them down.
How would you order them if you could?
I don't know if you can. Crap. Austin Powers, Fear and Loathing Las Vegas.
Really?
Mission Impossible. Home Alone, The Mummy.
Man, I would not have guessed that would be your order.
You put me on the spot here.
Yeah, that's true. I'm kind of surprised at that though.
It's hard. That's hard.
That was hard. We had a hard enough decision picking out 5 movies out of the 90s.
So many.
Yeah.
So many.
My 5, and I'm gonna go from 5 to 1. Build up the suspense here. So my number 5 would be Meet Joe Black. Again, not a movie I can watch a whole lot. Like, I probably watch it once a year. Maybe once every other year sometimes. Just intense. Makes me think about death, things like that. But it is one of my favorite films from the 90s, definitely. Jesus Christ, cats. Number 4 favorite, and this was tough to place. The Rock. Nicolas Cage, Sean Connery, Ed Harris. Directed by the asshole Michael Bay. Go fuck himself.
But he made The Rock.
He made The Rock. I can't say anything else. Hans Zimmer did the music. Sounds like goddamn Pirates of the Caribbean, just like all his other shit.
Hans Zimmer did like every 90s.
But yeah, one of Nicolas Cage. No, not one of Nicolas Cage's best work. Period for me. He did so much with that character. So many little things that just added up to a fantastic movie, a fantastic character. I fucking love it. Home Alone, number 3. Such a good movie. Watch it every year. I love everything about that movie. I really do. Number 2, Schindler's List. in my opinion, and I know a lot of people might disagree with this, because it is a fairly bold statement for any movie you would say this for. But in my opinion, Schindler's List, best movie ever made. That's not the most enjoyable movie ever made, not the funnest movie ever made, but the best movie ever made. It was casted brilliantly. The way it was shot, the black and white, the cinematography.
Ben Kingsley's best role.
Ben Kingsley's best role, Liam Neeson's best role, one of Ralph Fiennes' best roles. Very, very intense. A very fairly realistic, I would say. Maybe not ultra realistic, but as realistic as I think you could get. Mm-hmm. Look at the Holocaust and the atrocities that were committed.
Definitely.
Definitely one of my favorites. And then number one, this has been mentioned a couple times already, as of most of the other things on this list. Silence of the Lambs. That is competing for one of my favorite movies of all time. For me. I don't know where that would rank, but that definitely ranks as my favorite film from the 90s. Just Anthony Hopkins as Hannibal Lecter, especially in that particular movie, was just out fucking standing. One of the few roles I actually like Jodie Foster in. And then all the other characters and all the other actors in that were really good. Mm-hmm. But no, I absolutely loved that movie. That one of my favorite books, one of my favorite movies. That's definitely got to top off my 90s list. So yeah, there's some of our thoughts on movies. We have a lot more thoughts on movies, and I know this was kind of a long episode. This is kind of us keeping it down. So,
yeah,
you never know what our next episode is going to be about. Mm-hmm. It could be about anything. You know, we are so into a lot of things.
That's true.
Very passionate about politics, very passionate about religion and philosophy, even some scientific topics. I'm right in the middle of Neil deGrasse Tyson's Astrophysics for People in a Hurry. We're not experts in anything by any means.
We just have our own.
We have our own opinions, and we know
some things. Yeah.
We don't know a lot about anything, but we know a little about almost everything.
That's a good way to put it.
So,
good way to put it.
But yeah, let us know what you think. Let us know where you think we might should trim the fat.
All right.
Any parting thoughts from you?
No, I hope you enjoyed this podcast, and stay tuned. And if you have any questions for us, let us know, and we'll try to keep it interesting.
Yeah.
So,
see you later.
Mm-hmm.